Going to get straight on very quickly with, well, the economy and the UK, the Office for National Statistics has announced that UK's GDP is down 0.2% in the period July to September 2022. And of course, all the mainstream headlines talking about us entering recession. The Bank of England believing we're going to enter the longest running recession in history. ONS says that the quarterly fall was driven by manufacturing, which saw widespread declines across most industries. Services were flat overall, but consumer-facing industries fared badly, with a notable fall in retail. I think we haven't seen anything just yet, but don't worry, Jeremy Hunt is riding to the rescue, although he does say that there's no illusion there's a tough road ahead, one which requires extremely difficult decisions to restore confidence and economic stability. So things not looking so great in the UK, but just to make the point here, Patrick, if we look at GDP in the UK over the last several decades, really what we see is we have not yet recovered from the economic collapse of 2008, but equally the government decision, economic decisions around COVID, and GDP still has not reached levels, or it hadn't reached levels above those just in the run up to the lockdowns and so on in early 2020. And since we've headed south again, we're not likely to for some time to come. But in the US, it's a very similar picture.
Yeah, I think both the all economies, European, UK, and US, and Canada as well, are going to be suffering from stagflation, which is a stagnant economy. Nobody wants to use the big R word, which is recession, which used to mean 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, and now they're just expunged it from the vocabulary altogether because nobody wants to own that politically. So, stagnant economy plus creeping inflation, and a lot of things that are driving inflation are to do with, for instance, fuel and energy. And the governments do not seem to have any solutions to that, or they're not implementing any policies that are going to radically reverse that. So we're creeping along. And meanwhile, a lot of prices of staples are compounding. So the month on month or year on year inflation is actually compounding as we speak. So that's not going to make life any easier for anybody who's struggling to make ends meet each month, because I don't see the pay rises coming that correspond with the rises in food and essential goods, fuel, and energy.
Indeed, but of course, one of the big economic problems we've been facing for a couple of years now has been the lack of availability, supply side problems, and China a big part of that with their continuing COVID zero policy. But RT here reporting that China's perhaps easing that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think there seems to be a sea change in thinking in China. They've been absolutely devastated. I mean, China has to balance two things, which is keeping control of society, but also keeping their economy ticking along. And the zero COVID policy is just being seen as one of the things that has been devastating for the Chinese economy. So I think they're rethinking this, and so this is covering this. It's one of the only news outlets I found that is covering this. So I know the British government will deem this as Russian propaganda, but here we're going to put it up. So the global markets have responded to a change in Chinese COVID policy. This is really important, and so there are other factors around, including the U.S. election, that might have caused the markets to react positively, just because people know where things are going in the next couple of months or the next quarter. But when China does a major policy shift on something like COVID, i.e., lockdowns and shutting down Beijing or Shanghai, for instance, and the markets react positively to it, this is really encouraging because it might send a message to other governments that maybe this is what you need to do right now going forward in this situation, and not this winter pursue sort of draconian policies that might destroy economic growth and disrupt supply chains and all the rest of it. So I think for China, I don't think there room to maneuver economically, considering the trade war, the diplomatic war with the United States, and also with other countries in Europe who adopting a more strident policy towards China for whatever geopolitical reasons. This is one area that China can alleviate some of its economic issues.
Yes. Okay, let's move on